Well, good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the seminar stage, sponsored by Holland. My name is Jim Bartleson. I'm from the Chicago office of Produce Business. Very pleased to be here with all of you at the London Produce Show. We have a great lineup of speakers here who are going to be presenting some fascinating topics throughout the day. So let's get right to it. The first is going to be two presentations looking at the National Action Plan for Fruits and Vegetables, how the Dutch are getting children to eat more fruits and vegetables. We're going to have two presentations. We'll start with Karin Bemelmans, who's the coordinator of the Dutch National Action Plan, and then followed by Gertrude Zeinstra, senior consumer scientist with the Wageningen Food and Biobased Research Institute. So without further ado, let's start. Welcome, Karin.
Okay, good morning everybody. I hope I can reach the far end of the seats because there's a lot of noise and I will try to speak up loud. Thank you very much for your introduction, Jim, and thank you very much for inviting me to the London Produce Show to tell you something about the Dutch National Action Plan. So my name is, just see how it works. Click, yeah. My name is Karin Bemelmans and I'm the coordinator in the Netherlands of this new action plan. The Dutch National Action Plan for Fruit and Vegetables was launched in January this year. And we are not an institute, we are a new collaboration between growers and producers, retail, government and non-governmental organizations. So not an institute, just a collaboration for the next upcoming 3 years. We are financed by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and by the Dutch Produce Association organization. And the aim of the action plan is to stimulate the consumption of fruit and vegetables in the Netherlands for the upcoming 3 years. As you know, the Netherlands have an outstanding reputation in producing fruit and vegetables. A wide variety of fruit and vegetables are available year-round. So there's plenty of choice in our shops every day. But how about our consuming behavior? The average consumer eats about 7 times a day in a wide variety of places. This includes eating outdoors, at the office, on the road, in restaurants, etc. Places where unhealthy temptations are the norm rather than the exception. In many of these places, you hardly find fruits and vegetables. So for the past 10 years, we have barely seen any changes in the consumption of fruit and vegetables. It's very steady consumption level in the Netherlands. And although there was a slight positive report change last year by our retail sector, who said that they see some more fruits and vegetables bought in their stores. So a steady low consumption in the Netherlands. What measures need to be taken to further increase the consumption of fruit and vegetables? And what is the urgency for taking actions? Is there any urgency to take actions? We think there is. There are 2 reasons for this urgency. One is the following. In 2015, the Health Council of the Netherlands published a revision of the Dutch dietary guidelines. In this advisory report, the Health Council integrated about 29 background documents and they looked at the relationship between nutrients, foods and dietary patterns and the risk of major chronic diseases. And this council concludes that it has been convincingly demonstrated that eating sufficient fruit and vegetables reduces the risk of coronary heart diseases and stroke. They also stated that the consumption levels are associated with lower risk of diabetes and some cancers. So the main conclusion of this advisory report and the recommendation is that a shift in the direction of a more plant-based diet and less animal-based diet improves health in the Netherlands, and I think it will do worldwide. So a shift from plant-based to animal-based diet. And the Health Council had also looked at the figures, and they advised that the food and vegetable consumption in the Netherlands should be for foods at least 200 grams and for vegetables at least 250 grams. 200, 250, together more than 450 each day. So what are we eating in the Netherlands? The average person in the Netherlands eats about 125 grams a day. So that's half what the advisory, what is the recommendation. And for foods, it's even less. So an average Dutch man eats about 90 grams of foods a day, and women 120. Something less than an apple a day it is in the Netherlands. So that's also very low. So from a health point of view, the gap between actual consumption and healthy consumption is substantial. And there is also a second reason to close this gap. An increased consumption of fruits and vegetables not only provides health benefits, it also contributes to a dietary pattern with a lower environmental impact, a more sustainable diet. Certainly, with more fruits and vegetables on the plate, there will be less place for that part of meat on your plate. And there was another advisory body from the Dutch government, the Scientific Council for Government Policy, who also called for an action on a more plant-based diet. So the same as the Health Council. So, health improvement and sustainability. These were the two reasons. These were the two reasons for all the parties in the Netherlands to join hands and work together on a national action plan to stimulate consumption of food and vegetables. Together with our partners, we are committed to helping consumers eat more of them. And we are following two strategies for that. The first one is helping people who are eating already food and vegetables to enlarge their portion at that moment. So you're eating them, and then we are going to stimulate and help them to just eat this extra portion, maybe these extra 50 grams a day, just a little bit more on the plate. And the other strategy is to stimulate consumers to eat fruit and vegetables on different times a day. So not only at the dinner time, where it's the main consumption at the moment, but also during breakfast, in between meals, or during lunchtime. So two strategies: enlarging the portion of fruit and vegetables on the plate, and different moments and different places. For this national action plan, we have two ambassadors in the Netherlands, two people who are helping us out there to inspire consumers, to give lectures, to be in the media. And these two ambassadors are a general practitioner, Tamara de Weijer, and a chef called Rudolf van Veen. So we have inspiration from the health sector, who's saying it's really healthy to eat more, a general practitioner, and we have a chef who is inspiring people with more recipes, etc., and tips to help them to eat more fruits and vegetables. As I told you already, we just started in January, so we don't have much to show you already. In the first few months, what we did was, and of course that's a very logical thing to do, is to build a new website. It's a website with an information platform, with on the website all the information about fruits and vegetables. So for consumers and professionals, you can look up every type of product and you find the nutrient content of the product, storage advice, recipes, tips to use the product, inspiration of the product. It's something like, it's called Vegipedia. It's something like Wikipedia for fruits and vegetables. It's very interesting. It's only in Dutch, I'm sorry for that. But if you look at the website, vegipedia.nl, you can see, you can understand what the information is there. It's always a picture of the product and then the information of the product. So that's background information for consumers and professionals. And then just a few weeks ago, we launched our national new campaign to inspire people to eat more and stimulate them. And for this campaign, we used a slogan which is very used in many countries, which is very similar to other countries. In Dutch it is ga voor kleur, and in English it is choose color. So choose color is a social marketing campaign, because fruits and vegetables comes in all colors of the rainbow, and they add color to your meal. On social media, we inspire consumers to use more of these daily colors in their meals. And mostly it's on Facebook and Instagram, the information. And we are planning to choose color for all different kinds of activities in the following 3 years. And in these following 3 years, we will focus on different consumer groups. Of course, there will be specific target groups for the action plan. And one of the main target groups will be families with young children. Because young children are the important target group, because the habits you are used to as a youngster, you will follow up in the rest of your life. But what we can do about children to encourage them to eat more fruit and vegetables, of course, we have to follow sound scientific evidence. And that's what Gertrude will tell you everything about. So I would like to show you this because that's finished, this social marketing campaign. It's a small video. Of course it is in Dutch, but we have translated it in English. You can read down what's about. Let's still see if we can start it. Oh, just a minute. I think it will be the next one. Yeah. It has to be back, huh? Over here. Starting. Just a minute.
Hallo Nederland, mag ik even je aandacht? We zijn toch niet meer dat land van de kleurloze prakjes? Die suf gekookte boontjes, grauwe rabarber en sombere spruitjes? Nee toch, dat eten behoort al lang tot een grijs verleden. Gek eigenlijk dat we niet veel meer groente en fruit eten, terwijl het je dag juist zoveel meer kleur geeft. In je ontbijt, met de lunch, of wat denk je van een saaie vergadering? Erg lekker hoor. En super gezond, maar dat wist je al. Dus, gun je leven eens een beetje meer groen. Knalrood, geel, paars of oranje. Met welke kleur zullen we maandag beginnen? Ga voor kleur. Met groente en fruit.
So I'm glad it worked because we translated it for this event. It's very colorful, strong social media campaign, and we see that it's very likable on Facebook. So if you have on Facebook you have shown this campaign and you liked it, then the next day you will receive by Facebook recipes for the color of that week. So every week there's a different color central. This week it's white. So we have recipes with white fruits and vegetables. And we only send them to people who show that they're involved in when they have seen this first movie. So it's too early to tell you something about the results because it's all, still 4 weeks out there. But the first things is it's very likable and people say they like it. So maybe next time I can tell you more about the results. I would like to tell you that in the next 3 years the National Action Plan will have many more different activities, also focusing on young children, and maybe there will be a next time that we can show you a little bit more of the results. Thank you so far for this listening and this attention, and I would like to give the floor to Gertrude to tell you a little bit more about young children. Thank you. Even... door hem het 2 keer door.
Oh, je moet 2 keer?
Nu ben je er. Nee, 1 keer. Gewoon 1 keer.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and to present you some research findings of the studies we did among increasing vegetable and fruit intake among children. I'm working at Wageningen Food and Biobased Research. Yeah, okay. Which is one of the research institutes in Wageningen University and Research. Let's see. Nothing's going to happen. Let's see. Okay. I'm working at the Consumer Science and Health Group, and our mission is to understand consumer behavior to facilitate healthy and sustainable food choices. And the insights we get from that we use for consumer-driven product development and for changing consumer behavior. And we like to do research in real-life settings because that's more predictive of real behavior instead of doing it in a lab. And usually we do it both, but we really like to do it in real life as well. And I have a specific interest in doing research among children because I'm really interested in their eating behavior, how this works, and how we can change this. Just to give you some background, and Karin already told you some numbers about the adults, I would like to share some ideas about the children. In many countries worldwide, children's vegetable intake and fruit intake is below the recommendations. To give you an example, Dutch young children between 4 and 6 years, they eat about 44 grams, which you can see here. Oh. Sorry. Well, on the left side, and on the right side, it's the recommendation, which is about 100 to 150 grams. So there's really a gap. And for children, liking is a very important determinant of their intake. Children will not eat anything which they don't like. We have some challenges with vegetables, especially with vegetables, because children don't have an innate liking for vegetables. We have an aversion to bitter, and certain vegetables taste bitter. And vegetables are low in energy, and of course that's an advantage, but we have a kind of inborn tendency to like foods with a lot of energy. So that works a little bit against vegetables. Furthermore, texture and also the context of eating vegetables, it can be a reason for children's rejection or their acceptance of vegetables. And a kind of typical Dutch thing is to eat vegetables actually mainly at dinner. Unfortunately, we see a tendency that this is now changing, but it can be very hard, especially for children, to consume the recommended intake only on one occasion. We know from various studies that eating habits which are learned at a young age, they track into adulthood. So it's very important that we start at a young age with children to learn them to like fruit and vegetables. Just to give you an idea that eating behavior, it's very complex. There are a lot of factors playing a role. The schedule here is an example of an EU project, Pro Children, that shows that there are really various factors playing a role. I always like to say, well, you should look at the person. For example, there are children who are more or less sensitive to bitter, and children who are more sensitive to bitter have often more difficulties in eating vegetables. On the other hand, you have the product. Children's liking of fruit, it's usually much higher and much better than of vegetables. So getting children to eat fruit is a bit easier, and it's more challenging to get them to eat vegetables. And the environment. Usually children don't eat alone. They eat with their parents, they have a family, they have peers, but also the school, and there are laws and certain regulations which influence children's eating behavior. So first I want to share some results of my PhD thesis, which was about encouraging vegetable intake among children. In the first project, we wanted to know what are parents doing at home. About 250 parents and children were questioned. The children indicated their preferences, and the parents indicated...
Just a quick reminder that the chef's demo on the ring bar is going to take place in 10 minutes' time. That's the chef's demo, Jim Fisher, chef patron from Exeter Cookery School. That's Jim Fisher, the chef patron from Exeter Cookery School, will be doing a chef demo at 10:30. That's 10 minutes' time, ladies and gentlemen. Up on the ring bar. Thank you.
Thank you. So the primary age school children, and the parents reported how much fruit and vegetables the children ate, and we asked the parents about the use of the strategies, so the things they apply at home to encourage their child to eat fruit and vegetables. And parents reported all those strategies on a 5-point scale from, well, I never use it, to, well, I always use this. And as example, well, how often do you tell your child that vegetables are healthy? What we saw from this study, because we had separate questions for fruit and vegetables, we saw that the atmosphere of eating in general around vegetables was more negative than for fruit. And this was mainly due to the use of more pressure for eating vegetables. And we know that using pressure from literature, it's often counterproductive, so that's really something to take into account. What we also saw was that providing children with a choice and giving them some autonomy, that was positively related to children's fruit and vegetable intake. So parents who who gave their children more choice, those children ate more fruit and vegetables. So in another study, we were interested in what about vegetable preparation. We know from literature that raw vegetables and salads are often easier accepted among children than, for example, cooked or boiled or very mushy vegetables such as asparagus. But we don't know how this works within a vegetable. So we wanted to change the preparation method of the vegetables and see what it did for children's liking. And we wanted to know which attributes of the product are related to children's liking for the vegetables. So we had carrots and French beans, and we prepared them in 6 different ways. 4 you can show here on the picture. So it was boiled, grilled, puree, fried, and also stir-fried and steamed. And about 100 children, they tasted these vegetables and they made a preference rank order. So they indicated which one they disliked, which one they appreciated as neutral, and they liked. And in the end, they made a total rank order, so we knew which one they liked best and which one they liked worse. And we had adults who scored the attributes for each of these 6 preparations concerning appearance and concerning taste and concerning texture attributes. And then we combined this data from these adults about the characteristics of these vegetables with children's liking. And what we saw was that a uniform appearance, that was positively related to children's liking of these vegetables. And in contrast, when there was some brown coloring due to the preparation, this was negatively influencing children's liking for these vegetables. A crunchy texture was very well appreciated by the children. So it was nice if the vegetables had still some bite and were not so mushy or slushy. In contrast, when there was a granular texture, so there were kind of pieces in a smooth texture, children would dislike this texture. And we also found that a typical vegetable taste was appreciated by the children, and we think this is due to kind of familiarity. Familiarity is very important for children. When it's familiar, it's easier for them to consume, and children are hesitating to consume unfamiliar foods. So we think this typical vegetable taste came from this familiarity. So in another study, we tested the strategy freedom of choice. We had about 300 parent and child couples who came to our restaurant. It was a primary, young children, primary school, first 2 years of primary school. And they came to our restaurant to have an evening meal, which would consist of sausages, mashed potato, and vegetables. And we divided the children in 3 groups. So one group didn't have a choice. They just received one vegetable. Here you are, this is your vegetable. Another group could choose between vegetables, so the children received 2 plates and they could point to which vegetable they wanted to have. And the third group had both vegetables on their plates, so they kind of had choice and variation on their plate. And what we measured was their intake of all the meal components, their liking and meal enjoyment. And what we saw was that these children really appreciated having this choice. They were very happy with that. However, we didn't find any difference in liking or intake between these 3 groups. Actually, in all the 3 groups, the consumption of vegetables was about 50 grams. And what we think is that maybe this going to this restaurant setting for these young children may have been a little bit overwhelming and could have influenced what we found in the study. However, when we looked at the group who didn't have a choice, we had a questionnaire for the parents where they indicated how kind of reactant children are, so how much they oppose to certain rules. And we saw that the children who were reactant ate much less vegetables than the children who were not so much reactant in the specific condition of no choice. And subsequent studies, so we really think actually that there's something going on with this choice. And subsequent studies who were done on this topic show sometimes a positive effect of choice is found and sometimes no effect is found. I'm not aware of any negative effects that have been reported, so I think it's a strategy worthwhile trying and applying because the children appreciate this choice also so much. I was also involved in the European project HAPIT, which is about determining factors and critical periods for food habit formation and breaking early childhood. And it was really a multidisciplinary approach, very nice. We focused on fruit and vegetables at really young age, so children with starting to eat solid foods until the age of 6. And we really tested certain learning strategies and compared effectiveness of these strategies. As you can see, various European partners were involved in this project, so that was a really nice collaboration. One thing we did was looking more into repeated exposure. We know from certain studies that repeated exposure, so that children repeatedly taste a novel product, can help to increase their acceptance of this novel product. And it's especially studied with very young children who, of course, many products for them are new. So in this HAPIT project, various studies were performed to test this strategy further and to compare it to other strategies. Children between a half year and 4 years were included in the study. And in general, across these studies, the number of exposures to the new vegetable taste were between 6 and 10 times. And 3 strategies were compared. So you had this repeated exposure, where the children repeatedly were exposed to this novel taste. In a second condition, children had also this repeated exposure to this novel vegetable, but this vegetable was paired with energy. We know that this strategy can work to increase children's liking for this new product, and afterwards you can leave out this energy because they learn to like the taste, so you could see it as a kind of bridge. And it's similarly true for the next one, where the children were repeatedly exposed to these novel vegetables, and this novel vegetable was paired with a liked taste. So that's often a sweet taste, but it can also be another liked taste. And we wanted to know which of these 3 strategies is most effective. Which one can we use best to learn children to like this new vegetable flavor? And these various studies actually showed that this repeated exposure is really a strong and powerful mechanism to increase children's liking of these vegetables and their intake. And actually that this adding of energy, adding of sweetness or a light taste is not really more effective than this repeated exposure alone. So that's a very nice message, because it's good that we don't have to add sugar, or we don't have to add salt, or we don't have to add energy to these vegetables to increase children's liking. However, on the other hand, it may help children to taste it, because sometimes children are very hesitating to taste a new vegetable. And if you add a familiar or a liked taste, and if you add some energy, it may help them to taste. And this tasting is really necessary to have this repeated exposure effect. So on the one hand, it's not really necessary. On the other hand, it may help a little bit, especially children who are very hesitating to taste new products, to increase their tasting to these vegetables. And we were very happy. We had in these studies longer-term measurements were included, so we could really see that up to 6 months these effects were maintained. And within this European project, we did a lot of more studies. I cannot show you all today, but I would like to tell you that there's a website of this project, and we made a very nice booklet for parents where all kind of tips and tricks are into this booklet, with, based on the research findings. So the final research project I want to share with you is the project Veggie Time. It was actually really based on this finding of this effectiveness of the repeated exposure. We know this is very effective, but most of these studies are kind of researcher-led, and also often one target vegetable is used. So we actually wanted to know, does this repeated exposure also work for various unfamiliar vegetables and in the daily setting of a daycare? We did this project with various partners, as you can see on the right. And in the final data set, we had 250 children. Much more participated in the beginning, but when children get 4 in the Netherlands, they leave daycare, so you have kind of some dropouts. And these 250 children were exposed to 3 relatively new vegetable tastes. So we had pumpkin, we had white radish, and we had zucchini. And these 2 products were offered in 2 different product forms. And what we actually wanted to know was, okay, do the children really like this, learn to like this novel vegetable taste, and does it increase their intake? What we saw, we could answer this question with a yes for pumpkin and for white radish. We saw very nice increases in intake. For pumpkin, the children started around 20 grams and they increased their intake to 35. And for white radish, the children started at about 10 grams and they increased their intake to about 25 grams. So for those 2 vegetables, the strategy was really effective. However, for zucchini, we didn't find this positive effect. The intake of the children remained fairly stable, about 20 grams. And we think this is due to that zucchini has a relatively neutral taste. So it is possible that this repeated exposure, this learning strategy is less effective for this neutral taste. Or we also asked the parents about the familiarity and the use of the vegetables to check our basic assumption, which we chose the vegetables based on national data, but of course you can have a particular population which is different in your study. And we saw from this questionnaire, which the parents answered, that this zucchini was relatively more familiar, more used in the kitchen than expected on beforehand. So that can also play a role why the strategy was not so effective, that the vegetables was already familiar to the children. So what we concluded from this study, we had many more questions in the study and many more data, but what we saw was that this repeated exposure to unfamiliar vegetable taste, it really fits into the daily routine of a daycare. So I think that's a very nice way to go forward, because if you have all these children eating at least some vegetables at daycare, it's very beneficial. It can contribute to a higher intake, but also to more variation. It's good to keep in mind that often, for example, vegetables which the parents don't like themselves, they will not offer them to the children at home. But you could do this at a daycare center where many more children are and other preferences are there. I think it also gives chances for product innovation and collaboration. As I told you, we had these 3 unfamiliar vegetables offered in 2 forms. For example, the pumpkin and the white radish, one form was blanched and the other form was a cracker spread. Very neutral, with a few spices, no salt, of course, for these young children. It was well appreciated, and a Dutch retailer now also has this spread from pumpkin, and I think these products are really interesting to see, like Karin also said, to increase the number of eating moments, because you can put it on your bread or have it as a dip, really in between meals and outside the main meal. So I think that's really a really nice development. If you introduce such an additional eating moment, for example at the daycare or you do it at school, I think it's very important to see also and to know what's going to happen with the home consumption. What will parents change the behavior, or will the children change their behavior at home? Will they eat less or more? That's, I think, an important research area to continue with. And the study really showed also that, okay, if you have familiar vegetables, we need other strategies for these bland tasting or more familiar vegetables. So the take-home messages I want to give you for today. Well, eating behavior is very complex, and what we really see is that the liking for fruit is much higher than for vegetables. So really, these vegetables is a challenge, and fruits it's often better accepted. So if you really provide the children with fruits, they will eat it, but you have to make sure they're there. And eating vegetables is really something which we kind of need to learn as humans, and that may take some effort. I didn't explain it in detail, but it's very important that we start young, because really before the age of 2, children are really open to a lot of tastes and new tastes. So it's really important that we start with young children. So I'm happy that that target group is in the National Action Plan. And what you see is that this repeated exposure is a very effective strategy for unfamiliar vegetables. And you have to think about exposures of about 10 to 15 times. And what we know is that parents often stop with about 3 or 4 exposures, but really more are needed. But then, of course, when children get older, many more vegetables become familiar. So then we need other strategies. And fortunately, there are a lot of other strategies which can be applied. I think it's very important to vary with the preparation and with the product form in order to have these different textures and to fit the texture of the product to children's preferences. Like Karin also said, I'm also big in favor of increasing the number of eating moments, because only eating it at one time, it's difficult to get this amount of vegetables, but you should increase the number of eating times, and then it gets much easier. For young children, it's very important to make it available and accessible. And with accessible, I mean if a young child only can eat its apple when it's peeled and cut in slices, then this whole apple is not accessible for this child. So it can be available then, but it's not accessible. And especially for young children, it's an important step. Also the autonomy of the child, if we can involve children in growing, in cooking, in giving them a choice, so they have a kind of choice in eating vegetables and fruit. This may be very positively for their behavior. And I think it's also in the years that I did these research projects, that we should not only use health as a selling argument, especially for children, because health is a very abstract concept for children. And many children also have an association between healthy and distaste. So, oh, it's healthy, so it will probably not be very tasty. So if you only focus on this health, I think that's not the way forward. We should also focus on make it fun and indeed involving the children in preparation. And I think that's something which is also really present at this show. So I'm very happy about that, this positive, fun and tasty direction. And of course, always important setting a good example as a parent, as a teacher, and actually as a whole society. Oh, maybe one nice example, I put it on the slide, but I didn't tell you yet. A nice example in the Netherlands, where we have this kind of football shirts, which are the package of a football shirt, which is included with some snack vegetables. And that's, I think, a very nice way to make it nice for the children and make it fun, and also to be able to to compete with the other snacks, with usually unhealthy snacks, which are also very funny and challenging packages. Well, I can tell you this. Oh yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions and looking forward to collaborate in any future projects. Thank you.
May we invite Karin back up to the podium, where we have plenty of time for questions. So questions from the audience about our two fine presentations this morning. Anybody to start? So I have a question to start. Karin,
Yes.
one of the features of your presentation was the video, which, by the way, was excellent. And I wanted to ask if you could tell us a little bit about some of the sub-strategies behind the video, the music, the color. Was that professionally developed? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I think so. The strategy was to make it very attractive to eat fruits and vegetables. And what you can see in the video is that we choose these colors to be all over present, and that we show pictures of eating habits in the Netherlands from about 50 years ago. So it were this very grey plates, and then we put more color in it. And the video says, so your plate can look so much nicer. It's more trendy to eat this way. And we do that, and we show in the video these 3 strategies. So we show how to eat more on your plate, and also to eat it on other times. So there was a picture of breakfast and lunch in it also. Just inspiring people how they can use all these nice products. Yeah.
Did you preview the video in front
Yes.
of audiences,
Yes.
and what reactions did you get?
We tested 3 types of videos with 500 consumers, and we measured what the one was they liked the most, and that was this one. And also we asked them, are you going to the website to look for another recipe? And they said yes, and we can see the traffic on the website every day. It's growing. So because every week there's a new color. So we started with a purple, orange, and now it's white. And then next week we will be red, and then we will go back to purple or orange again. And so every week we highlight a specific color, and we give them recipes for lunch, dinner, and in between, with combining fruits and vegetables.
Do we have any marketing students in the audience? Anybody? Quite a cohesive marketing and communication plan you put
Yes,
together.
I think so. Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Anybody in the back?
No, I don't think so. What's that? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Clayton Swart from Fruit South Africa in Cape Town, or South Africa. Just a question. So the campaign and the research are quite linked.
Yes.
And then the other question around, is it whole fruits and vegetables, or are you also aiming at getting the food processed? Say if you make pancakes, you add butternut or whatever else as another means to get the vegetable consumption for kids. So have you just focused on the
Ja,
whole...
bij de link en of het ook bewerkt mag zijn.
Well, there's definitely a link. I think we have the same aims to increase children's fruit and vegetable consumption. And in the research we do, it depends a little bit on... sometimes we look at whole fruit and vegetables, but when we ask about their consumption, it's also about the fruit and vegetables which are used in meals, or when they are pre-cut, or... we also advise sometimes it can also be a strategy to kind of hide vegetables in meals and not really showing them, but to and that's especially advised when you have children who are very picky, very hesitating to eat vegetables, and you have children who are more open. And I think you really have to look at the child, which strategy will most fit, because I think hiding the vegetables can be a strategy, but you should also have the children learn to know what the vegetable is and how it looks like, so that in the next place where they have the whole vegetables, they know what it is and they know they will like it. But for example, for this group of very picky eaters, it may be a way to hide them, for example, in a sauce or in a soup. So when I'm talking about fruit and vegetable consumption, it's whole, but also pieces prepared. Yeah.
To add to that, that's the same for the National Action Plan. So it can be whole or prepared. But the main point is that if you are preparing it or hiding it, there must be no salt added. Because when you added salt in it, then I think you make the best of the product go away with the salt. So no salt added. Okay.
Who has the next question? I have another question. So Gertrude, with regard to the studies that you presented to us today, Were there any surprises? Did you go in with any expectations about what you might see, and then in the end were completely surprised by something?
Well, I think this issue of choice, it was quite new because it's not so much applied to food. In the literature, it's really about internal motivation and really about internal motivation theory. So it has been used for behavior change, but also a lot about smoking or physical exercise, and not really so much with children. And it was not really used by children and fruit and vegetable consumption. So that was really a kind of a striking finding, and which really required a next step, because in this first study where we had these questionnaires, we saw that these parents who had offered their children this more of choice and more autonomy had children who ate it more, but you cannot make a causal relationship in that causal inference. So it can also be that these parents have other habits which make that these children eat more fruit and vegetables. So that's why we set up this experiment in the restaurant to really find out, well, does this choice have this positive effect? And of course, we were in this study able to measure it once, and of course, you would like to do it over a longer time and a longer period. So that would be a nice next step to do. But that was really, I think, a very nice thing, and also because the study about this vegetable preparation, we knew that texture plays a very important role, but it was often between vegetables, so you have then also very different tastes. And the fact that we really found it also within this vegetable really convinced us that that is a very important factor. Yeah. Thanks.
Terrific. Last chance for questions? Let's show our appreciation to Gertrude and Karin. Thank you so much today.